Broadcasting from Millennium Student Center at the University of Missouri, St. Louis, and online at umslradio.org. We are the voice of UMSL. We are UMSL Radio.
The opinions expressed on this program are the views of the host and not necessarily the views of the University of Missouri St. Louis or this station.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another installment of That Science and Nature Show. I'm your host, Jeremy Howard, and joining me this week, as always, the Queen of Tarantulas, Becky O'Neill.
How's it going?
Microbe Master, Webster Heffern.
Hi, everyone.
And special guest, Dr. Bethany Williams.
Hello, everyone.
Bethany, how are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty well. And yourself?
I'm well. So, Bethany, you are our guest this week. Can you give a little insight into who you are at UMSL? Because you actually are not an UMSL grad student like me, Becky, and Webster. So who are you here?
Yeah, so I'm actually a postdoc. I finished up grad school just this past May, and I've joined a lab here to just continue doing some more research, studying fish that live in environments that are super toxic with hydrogen sulfide.
Nice. Where did you do your PhD?
At The Ohio State University.
Okay. And do you miss it at all? Are you happy to be here?
I do miss it a little bit. You know, you're there for a long time. You make lots of friends. You get used to it. But I've really liked UMSL so far.
Okay, cool. Well, we're glad you're here. And we have a great show for you. We're going to talk to you about AI solar-powered insect traps developed by a very ingenious high school student, resurrecting the woolly mammoth potentially, how your dog might be overweight not due to feeding it too much, but due to a genetic defect. Topic of the show this week is going to be all about conspiracy theories. What are they? How do they damage the science brand? How can we combat them? So on and so forth. But we'll jump right into it with the news. So our first story today comes to us from Smithsonian Magazine. This is called A High Schooler Invented an AI-Powered Trap That Zaps Invasive Lanternflies. So, lanternflies, if you don't know this already, are an invasive species. They are in Vietnam and China, and they eventually made their way over to the United States in around 2012 or 2014, I believe, around the early 20-teens. And they are kind of these colorful moth-like bugs that are very pretty from first glance, but they actually are super destructive for agriculture and lots of native plant life here in America. They just kind of caused a really big problem, particularly on the East Coast. And one student, her name is Selena Jung, ultimately was able to develop this very seemingly complicated but very cool, what is called a, how is it said? It's like a pun. It is in, I'm going to botch the name. It's artificial or artificial. It's supposed to be like artificial, but artificial. And the idea is that it is solar powered and it has an AI that basically is able to utilize photos taken of lanternflies to basically pick them out from any insects landing on it, so just zap everything. And with this sort of design that she made, is able to, again, with the AI, pick the flies out, and then ultimately with an electric current kind of zap them like a bug zapper you would have that you use, for any insects, like on your porch or something like that. So kind of crazy invention that a high schooler made. What do we think about this? Well, I know I'm green with envy. Like, I would have loved to have done something like this in high school. This is an incredible accomplishment. She can probably market this. She'll be successful for life already. What really impresses me is that she employed so many different techniques to get this thing going. She used deep algorithmic programming, like machine learning. She took over 500 photographs to get this thing done. It uses solar power. It somehow it successfully attracts the lanternflies, but it doesn't attract the other species that you don't want to kill. I mean, she got every little portion down, and for them to be zapping the lanternflies is pretty impressive. Yeah, I liked that the design was sort of based on chessboards and DDR, which if you don't know, DDR is Dance Dance Revolution from like the arcade days, and maybe about like a decade or so ago was really popular. The idea is like it's this dance mat where the arrows go up the screen and you have to touch the corresponding arrow on your dance floor mat to like to line up the area with the marker. And the idea is it's like this checkerboard pattern that she's sort of applying to the tree itself. So it's not like it's covering everything at once. It's just covering select pieces at certain times.
Does Gen Z not know what DDR is?
I don't know.
Interesting.
I mean, I don't know for certain if they do or not, but I just know DDR was really popular like a decade ago with like Rock Band and like Guitar Hero and stuff. So like I was from that era that I don't know if everyone knows what that is.
Okay.
So...
I just wanted to pick on Gen Z a little. It's fine.
Okay. I mean, maybe Gen Z might know, but I did find it funny, though. It's just, she just kind of took her family's umbrella off the porch patio. Like,
I noticed this.
Like, didn't really say anything. Like, did you ask your parents if you could do this? Or you just kind of took it and went? That was funny.
At first, I thought it was some high design, like giant flower artistic piece. No, it is a patio umbrella with a solar panel.
I made the same mistake looking at the image the first time.
Now, this is super cool. And I really, my first thought looking at this was like, okay, if you have a bug zapper that's really efficient, how do you control bycatch? But the initial design of it and the AI using photo recognition for the zapping really does help with the bycatch. So I was like, ooh, what else could we use this for?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and she had to take a tremendous amount of photos for the AI to work. It sounds like she spent like hours in her backyard and roughly 500 more photos of lanternflies. And they can't just be like, at least the way the article describes, they can't just be like nice, pretty photos of up close. You see all the color patterns. They have to be like from this angle or from top down or from bottom up. Like, just make sure you get every possible angle so the AI kind of knows from 360-degree perspective, what it's looking for, which it sounds so laborious. Honestly, this project could have been like a PhD. Like, the amount of work it sounds like they had to go into it.
It's true. Someone give this girl at least a master's.
Yeah. When I read this, my thought was like, this girl is destined to win a Nobel Prize, and rightfully so, I think, in her career. In terms of like, this invention is just insane.
Yeah, if the lanternflies ever got here and I could get some mini version of this to put in my yard, I totally would.
Yeah, it sounds like, though, Jung's invention is one of 40 as one of the finalists, what's called the Regeneron Science Talent Search, which I kind of want to look into this now about, like, what other inventions people have, like, put forth for this, just because it's, like, really cool. Like, last week when we talked about all the consumer electronics stuff that was, like, really new and fresh, like, what other kind of cool inventions that people, come up with? Because my mind is very limited in what can imagine the human race can accomplish tech-wise, but then I see things like this that I'm just blown away. All right, but moving on, we're going to move to our next article, and this is from good old NPR. This is about woolly mammoths. So scientists are taking a closer step to resurrecting the woolly mammoth. So some scientists at a biotech company are hoping to, in some way in the future, resurrect a woolly mammoth species. And the important milestone they have reached, they have not like fully resurrected a woolly mammoth, is not walking around amongst us, but they basically have gotten what is called a pluripotent cell, and they have been able to sort of induce it from its closest living relative, which is the Asian elephant. And from this, hopefully they can sort of lead the way to potentially develop a woolly mammoth elephant, or an elephant with woolly mammoth-like characteristics. The science is pretty surface level in terms of what the article describes. It seems like the bigger contention is that, should we do this or not? Should we revive this extinct species, and bring it back to us? Or should we be focusing our efforts on something more? Is this a waste of time? Is this a waste of funding and resources? So when we read this, what were our thoughts?
Yeah, I had so many thoughts when I was reading this one. I think you can't read this article without first just, we have to quote Ian Malcolm from Jurassic Park here. You scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could, they didn't stop to think if they should. I just think there's so many ramifications, even if they, do actually figure out the science. Where are they going to put the woolly mammoths? Will they be protected? What country are they going to go to? What impacts will they have? Are billionaires going to, pay money to hunt them? Like, so many different things, that I think we have to think about for something like this.
Yeah, I could see, like, in a zoo, maybe you have, like, an extinct species section. That might be like one positive avenue if like you kind of put animals that have once walked the earth and understand that like this used to be here and it's very rare. And that was my thought in terms of like positive things you could do with it potentially.
That'd be a pretty big habitat to build though for a woolly mammoth, and they were talking about making entire herds so that they would keep each other company.
Oh, I didn't see that.
George Church mentioned that. He was, I think, and he's a professor over in Boston. He does a lot of synthetic biology, and he said he was the founder, I guess, of the company that made these stem cells.
Okay. Yeah, I imagine, though, just getting one out the door is going to be a big enough challenge in of itself before you get a whole herd of them.
Yeah, well, they're smaller than our African elephants, and we can keep those.
Oh, I didn't realize they were smaller than African elephants. Okay.
Yeah, there are, however, the Colombian mammoth, totally different critter, much larger. So, yeah, there's technicalities with our mammoths, I suppose. But I have heard from this funny little sect of biologists where they're interested in repopulating the function of animals in the ecosystems rather than worrying about what specific animal it is. So I guess we could talk about that in terms of like, what's your functional niche? What are you doing in the environment as a species? So I've heard people say crazy things of like, yeah, maybe we should use these for some rewilding program where they're not in captivity. For me, I'm kind of like, well, what niche are you trying to fill? I have a lot of the same questions as Bethany, like, where are they going to go? I don't know. I think in my heart of hearts, I'm like, yeah, if you want to do this, you need a facility or a sanctuary somewhere. I'm not sure I could get on team release the woolly mammoths.
And they are very cold adapted, and global warming did come up. I mean, yeah, I have no idea where they're going to put these. Siberia, maybe, but is Putin excited about that?
Yeah, I don't know. Oh, no. Russian woolly mammoths.
And if you look at the company's website, they're also actually trying to bring back dodos and thylacines. So they're not limiting themselves to one species.
What is a thylacine?
It's like it kind of looks like in between like a cat and a wolf. It's a predator.
Okay,
yeah.
Gotcha. So Becky, you mentioned rewilding a second ago. Can you describe what that is?
Yeah, so if you have an animal that's functionally extinct in the wild, it's just not there anymore, putting something back there to replace it. I think most people would prefer the species that went extinct goes back, but then there's this idea that, well, maybe just put something back that has the same function.
Okay.
Mammoths are especially weird because they haven't been extinct that long on an evolutionary time scale. I'm sure there's still some plants and ecosystems that have retained some of their adaptations to be co-evolved with mammoths.
What are your thoughts, though, on something that's been extinct a lot less time? Like if you could bring it back, something that's been gone for like 50 years, 100 years.
Oh, like the dodo or the thylacine?
Yeah, sure.
I say go for it.
Okay.
What do the rest of you think?
I think about the ones like the white rhino, like the ones we have like 2 left of. Those are the ones I would think would be the most useful to try and, apply these techniques to.
Yeah, if we have limited funds, I feel like those are probably better than trying to bring back a Tasmanian tiger.
Yeah, we've been historically very bad as scientists and governments of introducing species on purpose for certain tasks and everything just going terribly wrong. So I don't see how introducing something like a woolly mammoth would go any better. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like the woolly mammoth kind of has like cultural icon significance in terms of like our, human ancestors were with them. So that's like, I guess from that aspect, why I could see people wanting to do it, even if it has no ecological relevance or importance. Like, it's like symbolically almost important for humans in a weird way. But
yeah, I almost feel personally like it's a bad idea, but if they made one, I would absolutely, go pay money to go see it. I was going to
say, we would still be part of the problem and still go pay money to go see it.
Yeah, from a scientific point of view, I would want one in a zoo or something so we could check it out and study it. But
So one of the scientists in the article mentions that these sorts of things are just a distraction, and it's not really the real problems that we should be addressing. Do you guys agree with that? These ventures to resurrect very extinct animals are just distractions for conservation?
I have kind of strong feelings about this in general, because you could make the same arguments for certain parts of space exploration, I think.
Okay.
It doesn't really immediately benefit a lot of people.
Yeah, understanding certain things about black holes, it's like, really?
Yeah. Like sending that space probe out there. But I don't think you can treat it like a zero-sum game. Like, we have funding for this cool scientific thing, but not conservation. I think there's enough to go around.
Yeah, when I see these sorts of things, I mean, conservation, of course, big aspect. but also just sometimes I'm like, the scientific aspect of just being curious and exploring things. Like, that's kind of my mind on space exploration, because realistically we could probably spend millions and trillions of dollars on not space exploration things and, benefit Earth. But I think it's just the human curiosity of knowing what's out there, or wanting to know what's out there, or wanting to see if we could bring back this extinct thing at all, which kind of goes back to the Jurassic Park quote that you mentioned a moment ago. Like, maybe we probably shouldn't, but I feel like human behavior just drives us to do it anyway against our better judgment.
I think this was a for-profit venture as well, though, this woolly mammoth thing. So given that it's a for-profit venture, does it really have to be perfectly ethical, perfectly ideal in terms of conservation? I mean, if it were funded by the government, I can understand us getting up in arms, like, this is a distraction. But given that it's a for-profit venture, it's like, okay, well, a lot of for-profit ventures are distractions. Circus distractions.
That kind of reminds me of the symposium we all went to last week, where Samoa presented on like all of her stuff from bioMérieux, and she was kind of getting across the point that like all these assays are mostly for the point of profit, even though they do have like biological benefit and health benefits. It's like the company still kind of has to make money, so that's kind of what we're doing here.
Yeah, that was a good one. Like, you want that company to make money, because if they do, you are eating safer food.
Yes.
Like, that's a good example.
All right, but we will move on to our last article, and this comes to us from Alive Science, and there is a genetic quirk that is leading about 25% of Labrador retrievers to overeat and become obese. So there is a gene in Labrador retrievers called the POMC gene, or POMC gene, I'm not sure how you say it, which is kind of referred to as a double whammy, and that it does not allow for the suppression of hunger and ultimately causes the dog, in this case the Labrador retriever, to overeat and become, very obese. So they've done a couple of different tests with this, dogs that don't have this gene active versus dogs that do. And the idea is, it seems like that when they feed the dogs the same amounts, the dogs that have the gene active are still very hungry later. And then another test, they did it where after feeding the dogs, they had them go after a snack, kind of look at how, for lack of a better word, voraciously the dogs were going after the snack and how much they wanted it. And the ones, again, that had the appetite, or the ones that had the POMC gene, were going at it much more aggressively than the ones that weren't. So I feel like, Becky, because you're the dog person, I feel like I want you to talk more about this.
Oh.
Do you have any thoughts on dog stuff and overeating and genetics that you know of?
I think lab owners knew something was going on for a long time, and I bet people in this room have had labs. They're so common.
Okay, yeah. So I apologize for people that have dogs. I just know Becky's a dog person.
But I was curious if anyone knows more about the function of this gene.
Okay, the POMC gene.
Yeah.
I was actually wondering while reading the article, I was like, are there any human analogs or anything like that? But
I bet.
Let's see.
One thing I do think would be cool is if this would be a great venture for RNA therapy. So there's new therapies coming out. They've tried them on rodents, where you can, rather than directly editing the genome, you just edit the transcriptome. So you're just editing the RNA that has been transcribed from the genome, and you are making sure that if you don't want a certain thing, you render it non-functional. So what they can do is they can get certain long-lived RNA editing complexes into cells that are very specific for just the RNA that you want to knock out. And it can be a temporary fix to a problem like this. So you have a temporary fix to your dog's tendency to overeat, but then you're not permanently editing the genome. So if the temporary fix has negative consequences for your particular dog, it'll go away after a day or two.
Okay. So how does that link to potentially to the overeating and appetite suppression?
So I think this would be a great area where that could be applied. So now we know that this is the gene responsible, you can apply RNA editing to that gene, as opposed to actually CRISPRing this gene. Just apply RNA editing to that gene if it's active in your dog.
Okay. So this would be something that you could do one time, or you need multiple treatments, or
there could be there might be a 1-day lasting pill, and then assuming that works well, there could be a 5-day lasting pill, and assuming that works well, you can try your 10-day lasting pill, and eventually you're going up with a 30-day long treatment, just one pill or one injection, and your dog is not overeating for 30 days.
Okay, I see. Gotcha. So from the article, it doesn't say that there is a POMC gene in humans. It just says the pathway is similar in humans to what is found in dogs.
Okay.
So it's not one-to-one in terms of the exact gene, but like similar idea. So potentially, Webster, the dog research from what he describes, could have human applications as well.
So this gets more complicated, but I'd be really curious. We don't know the genetic basis in dogs, I think, of retrieving behaviors. So Labradors wanting to pick stuff up in their mouth and carry it around or bring it back to you. But I'm curious if some of those things, especially the propensity to put stuff in their mouths, is on a loci close to this gene. I've wondered if those things are maybe linked in some of these retrieving breeds. But I'm not sure. I don't know if anyone's looked at that. I imagine that question of like finding the genes associated with tendency to retrieve, that's a pretty complex study in and of itself.
Yeah, I'm sure. Sure. So Webster or Bethany, have either of you had dogs? Do you have dogs now?
So this article, I felt very vindicated. Growing up, I had a golden Labrador retriever named Zeke, and he was absolutely one of these dogs, just always begging, always acting like he was starving. So
Okay.
whether he was or not, he was just a very good actor. But maybe he had this mutation. I don't know.
Gotcha.
My parents have had 2 labs. The first one was purebred, and she actually definitely did not have this mutation. We could just leave her food bowl totally full of scraps from the Thanksgiving table, and she would eat it over the next day. Like, she would be she was a great eater in that she never got obese. She was fine. Their current lab, who's half Rottweiler, she is more the begging all the time type. She definitely might have this mutation, and she's on a weight loss food, but she's doing extremely well on just that.
Yeah, I wonder, because there's in show Labradors, like conformation dog shows like you see on TV on Thanksgiving, they tend to keep them a little chunky for the show ring. So I wonder if selectively breeding for chunkier dogs to kind of get that show ring look, it might be associated with more frequency of this particular genetic mutation.
Why is the chunkiness desirable from the show ring aspect?
So each dog in the show ring has a written standard, but those things aren't always operationally well defined. I don't know what the Labrador standard says. Rottweilers are actually another good example, but it might say something like well-boned or full chest or well-muscled. It's going to say something about the shape and the development of the body. And so sometimes you have animals that are shown, in my opinion, slightly overweight to meet those targets and what they think the judges are going to find the most stylish and the best.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, the one thing I kind of chuckled a little about in the article is right after they mentioned the POMC gene potentially having linked to human pathways is that, quote, people are often rude about the owners of fat dogs, blaming them for not properly managing their dog's diet and exercise. But we have shown that Labradors with the genetic mutation are looking for food all the time, trying to increase their energy intake. So I thought that was funny because it was like, it's not you guys, it's not the owners. You're not being, mismanaging feeding your dog.
Don't give in. You can't give in to the puppy dog eyes.
Yeah. All right. Well, hopefully there will be more interesting discoveries and linkages to genetic pathways with dog research in terms of dog health and so on and so forth. But we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back to talk about topic of the show. Don't go anywhere.
Hi, I'm Dan Girth, Director of Student Services in UMSL's Honors College.
And I'm Lana Jabbar, biology major, class of 2026, and a student in the Honors College. And we're here to let you know that even if you're already a student at UMSL, it's not too late to become part of the Honors College.
That's right. If you have 4 or more semesters left and a 3.2 GPA, you can still earn the Honors Certificate.
As a student, my favorite part of the Honors College is the community and all the events they host every semester.
For me, teaching honors classes is always the best part of my day. I love being in small discussion classes, helping students learn from each other's perspectives. If you like small discussion classes and writing more than standardized testing, please apply to Honors.
To start the application process, you can visit the Honors College online or just call Dan at 314-516-7197. We hope to see you next year.
And we're back. And now it's time for topic of the show, which is a longer form discussion on some pre-selected topic I choose. This week, we're going to be talking about conspiracy theories. What are they? How are they damaging to science? How do we prevent them? So on and so forth. Also, did Webster just walk out?
Yep, Webster had a minor emergency to attend to, but
Okay.
everything is okay and well and good, and he will be back with us next week.
Okay. Well, we wish him well. Anyway, so conspiracy theories. In science, and this is a little bit boring, so stick with me, listeners. We have what are referred to as hypotheses, and we have what are referred to as theories. So in science, in the science realm, a hypothesis is just some sort of general explanation for some kind of phenomenon, just something potentially we could test in an experiment. A theory in science is what we have when we have evidence from experiments supporting it, usually multiple times, and we construct a theory out of this. For the general layman people, a theory is just some kind of explanation for something in terms of how people use it outside of science. Now you're probably thinking, Jeremy, that's very nuanced and very boring. Why are you telling us this? I'm telling you this because it's important for how conspiracy theories come to light. Because when people develop conspiracy theories, there's some kind of explanation for why misfortune happens to them or why something is the way it is, often involving something very secretive or, behind the scenes manipulative, for some reason why it is, but it's not tested. There's no real way to prove it or not. So I thought I'd start out the conversation with just, in general, where do you think these conspiracy theories come from? Anywhere that you've heard them, any facet of life, any community you've been involved with, so on and so forth.
I don't know. I feel like everyone's got that one uncle.
Okay.
So I've definitely occasionally had a family member that I don't know where they're getting this stuff, but they'll spout off some conspiracy theories.
Okay.
Yeah, social media for sure.
Yeah, there's a lot of ideas on social media, definitely.
Sometimes YouTube gives them to me in ads, I've noticed.
Gives you conspiracy theories or just...
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have any, anecdotes? That you can think of.
No, yeah, they're more like quasi-political as well.
Okay.
So I don't know how much I want to get into them, but I don't know why I'm getting them because I don't Google that stuff.
Yeah, I'm starting to get election ads for people running for primaries and stuff, and not because I'm looking into it, just because it's starting to become that point in the year as we're leading up to elections this fall. I'm rolling my eyes. I'm like, oh, okay, here we go again. Gonna start seeing more and more of this. But that's not really conspiracy theories. Yeah, for me, it's more so friends of friends, extended family friends, those kind of things. My mom went and visited a friend from her childhood, and she hadn't seen her for a decade plus, and when she met her, she was totally QAnon follower. That there's a large gap of time. I was whoa, what has happened the last decade?
It's could you please just try to sell me some Mary Kay instead?
Yeah. There's that kind of stuff. So it's she just told me, my mom just told me, yeah, so we just try to focus on talking about anything that's not related to that when we visit and kind of just enjoy our company that we once had. All right. So conspiracy theories can kind of come from anywhere, social media, family, different circles, so on and so forth. I'm just curious, what are some of the wildest conspiracy theories you've heard at any point? They could be just in the news, in the media, from your family, any point, anything.
The Denver airport, which I used to have to fly through a lot, living in the western United States. There's this idea that it has something to do with a satanic cult, and there's a secret base under it, and maybe it has something to do with reptilian aliens. It's really wacky.
Okay.
I don't know that I've ever heard any Ohio specific ones. I think just all the basic ones. Aliens, 5G, flat Earth, microchips, and the vaccines. Just all your garden variety.
Yeah, there's kind of the standard ones. Yeah, I remember a year or two ago seeing a meme, a screenshot of someone the Flat Earth Society. So they think they're this flat and it's not round, which is incorrect. But someone asked them in a comment, they're do you have, members I'm botching this. The Flat Earth person was we have members all around the globe. And the top comment is just wait a minute, he'll figure it out.
Oh, wait, I do have a Midwest specific one that I heard last year.
All right.
And I really had to dig to find this because I've heard that people think chronic wasting disease in deer is a conspiracy theory. And I thought, why would that be a conspiracy theory? So chronic wasting disease is a prion. It infects deer populations. The deer get sick and die. And one way that state fish and game agencies deal with this is they do what's called a depredation hunt. So they allow an extra hunt to thin out the herd a little bit, and then we get less disease transmission because the deer are effectively social distancing if some of them are dead. So here's the conspiracy theory, that chronic wasting disease does not exist, that car insurance companies are paying off state fish and game agencies to do depredation hunts to reduce car collisions and therefore their costs.
Man, the leaps of logic there you got to go through to get that. It's
yes.
Yeah, I do remember when I was an undergrad, professors who would research deer would give talks to like local hunters and like local fishermen and stuff. And there would be years where they would be like, the deer population's really low, like you can't go out and hunt. And they would get like chased out like torches and pitchforks by the hunter and fisher people because they're like, how dare you tell us we can't go hunt? Because, you know, like the assumption is like there's always lots of deer. We always want to go, you know, hunt and like extirpate them, like not totally extirpate them, but just like hunt them always because it's part of our culture and so on and so forth. So I was like, oh, I didn't realize things could get so intense with the hunting culture, but apparently it can. That's not a conspiracy theory. That's just a anecdote about how science communicate with the public. I'm trying to think of other ones that I've heard of. I have a list where we'll go through in a second, which includes some of the ones we've mentioned, but any ones that like I've heard that are specific to me. I mean, the QAnon with my mom's friend was the big one I could think of.
Do we think like a Sasquatch and those sorts of things, does that fall under conspiracy theory?
I think so. It's kind of like urban legend. Like there's no real concrete proof for it kind of thing. There's a little bit of like folklore elements deal. So, yeah. All right, let's go to the interweb. So this is just a list of random crazy conspiracy theories that some people actually believe. Some of them we've mentioned, but here away we go. So the moon landing was fake. So we didn't actually land on the moon. It actually was an inside job done by the CIA. So don't know why the CIA wanted to put us on the moon, but that's what the conspiracy theory says about that.
To look better than the Russians.
That's true. There was a lot of competition with the Soviets in the 1960s and 70s. The government actually killed JFK. It was not Lee Harvey Oswald. The government just took him out because they needed to for some reason. Again, probably the CIA. It seems like the CIA are responsible for a lot of things. COVID-19 was engineered by the media. It was not actually, didn't come out of Wuhan, China. It was actually just media fabricated. Somehow they just made it up.
So I was in the hospital for 3 days for no reason then?
I guess so.
Yeah,
cool. Did you have like serious COVID?
I did, yeah.
When was this?
2021. It was about 5 months before the vaccine actually came out for like my age group.
Oh,
so
dang.
Bad
Wow.
timing, yeah.
That sucks.
I didn't know it was a conspiracy though, so.
Yeah, so you're okay. Your pain and suffering weren't actually real.
You just had the flu.
Yeah, it was. That was another one with COVID-19 stuff. When I'd like I remember traveling to my friend in Omaha like in 2021, and people were just like, "It's just the flu. It's like not a big deal. It's not real." Like,
oh my goodness.
I would hear people on the streets talk about that. It was almost like too perfectly cliche. Of like a group walks by me and says this like out loud, so I can hear it as a science person. But yeah, let's see. The Earth has been sucked into a black hole. So. I guess inadvertently in 2012 this happened when the world ended. If you remember back in the day when that happened. And only certain people know about this, not everyone. It's kind of a clandestine thing.
Oh, no.
Disney created the movie Frozen as a distraction so they could hack Google.
To what end?
I don't know. It's just one of the theories. Like Becky mentioned, the Denver International Airport is actually headquarters for the Illuminati.
Okay, I knew it was.
Yeah,
there's different versions of this.
There's also rumors poking fun at secret tunnels and lizard lairs lurking beneath the building.
Okay.
So there's that reptilian.
Yep.
I wonder how that got started. That is fascinating to me. The Earth is hollow, which kind of goes along with the Earth being flat, but the idea that there's actually nothing inside. There's no like tectonic plates or crust or any of that. It's just an empty. We're just like an eggshell. There's like just nothing inside. That one's kind of weird. The world's flat, which I just mentioned. Prince Charles is actually a vampire. Believed to have been inspired by Bram Stoker's Dracula. So I guess there's some literature influence there. He is very old. He's still alive, right? Yeah. So that one's kind of funny. Bigfoot's real. That one, like Bethany mentioned. The Nazis had a secret base in Antarctica. So I guess during World War II, they're able to establish camp there and do research and other things in Antarctica, allegedly. We're all living in the Matrix. So this is all a simulation. Life isn't real. So on and so forth. I feel like I've kind of heard that one before about like...
Yeah.
That kind of one bleeds more into like the philosophy, like what does it mean to be alive? Are we really living? Like what is this? Is there an afterlife? Like that kind of stuff. So that was a little more metaphysical. The moon's not real. Some people think the moon doesn't exist.
What is it then? What are we looking at?
Just seems like it's, I don't know. Oh, they think it's just a projection. And it seems like people who subscribe to the flat earth theory also believe the moon's not real. So they kind of go hand in hand, apparently. What's
it being projected upon?
I guess the sky, space. I'm not sure. Another one. The Titanic did not actually sink. It was just a similar ship that was, I guess, from a similar company or looked like the Titanic. I guess it's just, that one's weird.
Okay.
Especially since we literally know where the Titanic is and we can like point to it that it's sunk and it's right there.
James Cameron made it up just like the moon landing.
Oh yeah, they could fit both people on that plank of wood like in the movie. Zombies are real. They can't actually rise from the dead. Though we do have some slight biological evidence for zombie stuff from ants, right?
Yeah, and I would argue that human zombieism is perhaps rooted in rabies.
Right, yeah. I actually remember us talking about this way long ago on the Last of Us HBO episode. We did it was the second episode of the podcast when we were like, how real are zombies? How much could this actually happen?
I have been promoting this rabies thing for a long time. You might hear me mention it more than once.
Maybe more than once. All right, just a few more. All right, Bill Gates is making fake snow. I don't really understand that one because he could actually be making fake snow if he invested in like ski slope snow or something like that. I don't know. That one's weird. The Betz mystery sphere is alien material. I actually don't know what the Betz mystery sphere is.
I don't know either.
It is, let's see, it's baffled the public since it was found by a couple in Florida in 1974. Conspiracy theorists are convinced that it's alien material, while others, such as the military, say it's a man-made object.
What's it called?
The Betz mystery sphere. So it's probably one of those deals where somebody found something and they couldn't describe what it was, so they just kind of alluded to aliens. It kind of falls in crop circles and those sorts of things, I feel like.
Yeah, it kind of looks like, for people that don't know what it is, one of those balls of aluminum that have been compressed until they're smooth and shiny, except it's a little bit bigger.
Okay. Interesting. Next, Amelia Earhart was eaten by crabs. You weren't on this episode, Becky, but when we had the wetland episode was me, Webster, and my friend Brandon. The last article we covered for that news cycle was they allegedly found Amelia Earhart's plane, in the Pacific. So we were kind of wondering, is it actually the plane? Because it was only based on sonar imaging. They didn't actually pull the wreckage up, so they don't actually know for certain. But this is just kind of, the article at that time discussed conspiracy theories, she was actually a Russian spy, so she just faked her death and went back to Russia, or she actually just faked her death and went back to the United States and just lives a very clandestine, relaxed life, or she was an alien. There's a lot of conspiracy theories around Amelia Earhart. That is fascinating in of itself. And one more, the Loch Ness Monster lives in Scotland. So that was kind of with Bigfoot, like Bethany said. So lots of fun, wild conspiracy theories that we have out there. Now, conspiracy theories, like I mentioned, are not actually rooted in actual science or actual fact. So how do we feel about conspiracy theories in their relation to science? Do you feel they're harmful? Do we feel they're just kind of fun and innocuous? What are our thoughts on that?
I think they're corrosive. I'm not a fan of even Bigfoot kind of stuff.
Not even the urban legend aspect, kind of folklore.
Exactly.
Okay.
So, I definitely think they're very harmful in the long run. But, it is also kind of fun to just chat with your friends, at a bar. So what do you guys think? The galaxy's huge. Do aliens exist? That sort of thing. It can be fun. But, yeah, at the end of the day, it can be pretty corrosive. Like you said, if people are going, okay, yeah, aliens do exist and they're in our government and I'm going to vote a specific way because of that, those sorts of things. So, yeah, I think they can definitely be pretty harmful.
Yeah, I agree with the sentiments that you presented because it's just people believing kind of whatever they want without sound evidence, which kind of stems a little bit into what is belief versus fact and how does belief sort of influence human behavior. And that could go just beyond conspiracy theories. That could go into religion and belief in God and stuff like that. So it's a little bit more nuanced of a topic that I'm going to dive into at this point. But what I wanted to ask next was, why do you think people believe in conspiracy theories? What do you think drives them to do so? Or maybe it doesn't even drive them. Why do you think people just fall into them?
So I think a lot of them, I think it feels good to be the first person to like know something. You feel smarter. It feels like you have some power over what's going on. So I think there's power in knowing that you know something that like no one else does, because they're all such dummies. Why don't they see this thing that's so obvious? Okay.
I found the couple people I've known that have been really into conspiracy theories seem to get a sense of connection from the community surrounding the conspiracy theory, and sometimes they don't have really strong connections with, I'd say, the normies, us normal folks or family. So it's like they're getting something they need from believing and participating in the conspiracy theory.
Mm-hmm. I like that you brought up power, Bethany, because this is kind of stems into, or at least how I think people sort of fall into them, which is this idea of just needing an explanation for like misfortune where something bad happens. Because I feel like when something bad happens to any of us, regardless of how minor or major it is, you feel very powerless and you don't really know what to do. And if you can kind of grasp onto something and explain it, and like you mentioned, like you're the first person to figure this out, like I know why, you know, my vote didn't count in this election or whatever, or why, you know, that creature I saw in Scotland was Loch Ness Monster or whatever. You feel some sort of like agency over it, and, you know, you feel kind of better about your life if you can explain why something happened to you, versus just not knowing and it being, you know, kind of this abstract thing about why do bad things happen to people, good people, bad people, whatever. I think, yeah, that conspiracy theory aspect is very powerful in that sense of giving them that. And how also, to Becky's point, like a sense of belonging. So like everyone wants to belong. It's like we need that as humans and as social creatures. And if you meet people who kind of you can commiserate with, so to speak, about bad things that happen, and, you know, you join together and follow similar ideas, I kind of see why it could be appealing from that aspect. So, and I just thought of a conspiracy theory from the question before. So the whole thing about like birds are secretly like government, like robots, like observing us. Yeah. I'm not sure where that one came from, but that was always interesting, where like birds aren't real. They're just like government spies recording what we're doing.
We dissected some in ornithology, and
did you find the SIM card that recorded all the data? Oh, okay.
There's nothing robotic in the birds.
Okay.
No SIM cards.
Gotcha. What did you dissect, out of curiosity?
This was at Idaho State University, and they had permits for everything, just as a disclaimer. So anything that was like salvaged from roadkill would come to the ornithology class.
Oh, okay.
So we had all kinds of different species, and just we would dissect them until some part of them wasn't hamburger, and then we could look at the organs and things and learn from them.
Right. Yeah, I remember when I took vertebrate zoology as an undergrad, we did kind of like it was actually kind of cool, like a lunch lab where like we had like these cooked Cornish game hens, and like we did like anatomy with muscles and bones and stuff. It was like, and we got to eat it afterwards because like it was kind of cute. Like it was, you know, sanitary, everything. It was like, you know, cooked, professionally prepared by a chef and all that. I was like, all right, that's kind of cool. You link like food and like anatomy, ornithology stuff together. I thought that was clever for the professor. So
yeah.
All right. I want to ask next, have you talked to people that have had conspiracy theories? Have you heard them out? Have you tried to convince them? Have you stayed away from them? Because that's possibly a viable answer as well. Like, I want no part of this.
I think I started giving up after about 25 years of age.
Okay.
I was like, no, I'm not doing this anymore.
Yeah, I'll admit, I probably would not engage. I wouldn't really know where to start is my thing. Because on some level, it's like, okay, and I don't mean this as like to be any way rude or disrespectful to my students, but when I teach, I have to sort of like water down concepts or break things up into smaller pieces to get to the point where the student can latch on to an idea, and that can build them back up to the idea I need to get them to. With conspiracy theories, they may not understand the basic concepts I want to try and teach them, and that's not because they're dumb, it's just because they may not have exposure to them or the education required. But then also I have to battle beliefs or like their emotional responses, which are in and of itself very difficult, because if people feel a certain way, it doesn't really matter what I present them with. They are not necessarily going to buy into it, so to speak.
Yeah, I remember one conversation with someone who was, I think they just assumed that everyone thought the same way as them, and that global warming, climate change was all fake, and that scientists were getting paid off to say that. I was like, I'm a biology master. I was a master's student at the time. Like, I can promise you, A, we're not rich, B, we're not making it up, C, I'm kind of a scientist, you know, at the time. So, but then that person just being like, oh, but you're one of the good scientists. So he kind of just, sidesteps that. Like, you're one of the good ones. It's fine. So there was no convincing there, though. Yeah,
Okay.
It's just change the subject, move on, try to live with it.
Okay.
I find if I'm going to convince anyone of anything, we need to be like good friends first.
Okay.
And then if we can have earnest conversations about those things, I can start sneaking factual information in and we can have an earnest discussion. But if it's just somebody I meet or who's an acquaintance or kind of a friend, but I don't know them that well, it's just not going to work.
Yeah, as someone who has anxiety and hates conflict, that would never work for me. I would never just go up to a stranger and be like, well, actually, the Earth is actually round. Let me break it down for you. They'd be like, who are you? Get out of my face. I'd be like, yes, please. So the article, there's a supplemental article I'm just pulling up from Scientific American in terms of like how to fight conspiracy theories. And they just had some kind of interesting wrap-up bullet points we could talk about real quick, which is first, don't appeal to emotion. Research suggests that emotional strategies don't work to budge belief. So it's hard to pull someone out of their emotional beliefs, and it's also hard to project your emotional beliefs onto them. So it doesn't seem to work one way or the other. Weirdly, don't get sucked into factual arguments. It's so sad. Facts don't work, apparently, according to this article. So debates over facts on conspiracy theories or the consequences of believing in a particular conspiracy theory fail to make much difference, authors have found. Next, focus on prevention. So the best strategies seem to involve helping people recognize when information is unreliable or untrustworthy as opposed to or before they're exposed to a certain belief. So kind of that education component or prevention. I know in previous episodes we talked about things like this, Becky. You've mentioned like the idea of critical thinking and teaching that.
There's also Carl Sagan's book, Demon Haunted World. He has a chapter called The Baloney Detection Kit, and he lays it out like everything you need to catch a nonsense argument. Mm-hmm. So I would say look up The Baloney Detection Kit.
And then the last one is support just generally education and analysis. So putting people into an analytical mindset and explicitly teaching them how to evaluate something helps them be more protective against conspiracy theories and going down the rabbit hole. So kind of again stemming to what Becky just mentioned, the baloney detector, using those critical skills, those analytical skills. So it seems like prevention is kind of the takeaway here versus you have to go back to the source or, get to them before they are exposed to the wild, which I wonder, I feel like this is more anecdotal, but I feel like more conspiracy theory people are tend to be older. This is, again, I don't have factual or I don't have evidence for this, but it seems like I don't see this as much with younger people, though I would be curious to know the numbers on that, are kids in school being exposed to through rapid social media exposure, who kind of falls down the rabbit hole in that way. So that's just my curiosity on that. Okay, any last thoughts on conspiracy theories before we jump to outside of science? Any last ones you want to rally off?
Get your vaccine.
Get your
Climate
vaccine.
change is real. Chronic wasting disease is real.
Mm-hmm. The birds are real also. They're not spying on you. What you're doing is not that interesting, let's be honest.
Yeah.
And you have a phone in your pocket, so let's be real. They don't need the birds.
Correct.
This is true.
Okay, we'll be right back with Outside of Science. Stay tuned.
Did you know that students can often get free or discounted tickets to select performances at the Two Hill Performing Arts Center? For more information, visit twohill.org or contact the Two Hill ticket office at ticket@umsl.edu.
And we're back. And now it's time for Outside of Science, where we talk about things, you guessed it, outside of science to prove the weird fact, real people are not robots that do research 24/7. So, what have we all been up to in the last week or so for things that are not school or research related?
For me, I think the most exciting things were I ran a trail half marathon.
Nice. Where was this? When was this?
Quiver River State Park.
Okay.
So, yeah, just nice state park, lots of trails.
Nice.
And the local frozen custard place opened back up. So
nice.
Yeah.
What is the local custard place?
Fritz's is the one we go to.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'll need to check that out. Also, are you a regular runner?
Yeah.
Nice. I've been very slowly trying to get into it. So I've done 2 5Ks so far, but I'm not super hardcore or a marathon, half marathon yet.
Yet. That's the important word. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, maybe post PhD will be a better time for this when I kind of trickle out of this. But right now I'm we'll just settle for a marathon or 5K here, 5K there. Yeah. No, not marathon. No, not yet. How about you, Becky?
One of my dogs got some bladder stones removed today, so some post-op surgery stuff for the next little while here. And I started reading a new book. It's called The Lives of Puppets by T.J. Klune.
Ooh, what's it about?
It is an apocalyptic future where androids and robots and things have taken over the world, and I won't give any spoilers beyond that, but it's I would describe it as maybe cozy fantasy, but also dark, if you're familiar with the genre.
Okay. Cozy fantasy, but dark. It sounds very intriguing.
Yeah, and it's funny. It's one of the funnier books I've read in a while.
Nice. I haven't really been doing that much, like, outside of science. I feel like it's actually been a pretty boring week for me, surprisingly. The one thing I'll mention, which is like faux outside of science, is Marshmallow Madness is currently happening, and a couple of the grad students actually filled out brackets, and we have a little competition going. So it is me, Ray, Raj, Webster, who isn't here right now to back me up on this, and I'm blanking on the last, and Soren. We all fill out our brackets, and we're actually putting a little bit of stakes on this. So we were kind of talking originally what we were going to do. Originally we were going to be like, oh, everyone put in $5. I'm like, and then we talked about potentially the loser wearing an embarrassing costume to school, which ended up it started as a chicken costume, and then Ross suggested a broccoli costume, which I thought would have been absolutely hilarious if one of us had to wear a broccoli costume to school in April. But we didn't settle on that. These are just ideas we're brainstorming in the chat. But we settled on is that the losers have to buy the winner a meal at Ferguson Brewing Company. So you get a little meal out of it if you win. And winning is getting the most points in the bracket. So you don't have to guess the winner correctly. You just have to get enough points in all the matchups to win.
Nice.
So the competition doesn't end until like mid-April. Like today was like the first round of matchups for all the March Mammal stuff. Which if you haven't done March Mammal Madness, it's like March Madness, but for animals battling and not people playing basketball. It's like a fun biology competition that's done every year between schools.
Who wins? How do they win?
So the way it works is that there's battles by biologists on Twitter. So they present arguments of like, if this animal encountered this animal in the wild in this type of battlefield, which is randomly selected, like this is how it would play out based on their, behavior, physiology, morphology, that stuff. So there's a lot of like science and learning aspects. I actually do it with my animal behavior students every year as one of our labs. So they get to like look up animals and give little presentations and kind of like figure out, all right, if these two animals found each other, how would it play out? So.
Isn't there an Animal Planet, like an old Animal Planet TV show that was exactly that?
If there is, I'm not familiar with it. I'll have to look into it.
There's definitely a TV show where they were just fighting each other. I could not tell you what it's called, but
okay.
I remember what you're talking about. It had like terrible 3D animals. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
There's also one for bugs called Monster Bug Wars.
Huh. Yeah, the Marshmallow Madness admittedly has gone a little bit off the rails because in recent years there's like all these other animals that get thrown into it. Like this year there's a giant squid. There's a couple other random animals. There's a fungus called the bear, I think, but it's like a fungus. It's not an actual bear. The way it was described was weird. So it gets very weird and very interesting. The idea is it's supposed to be silly. It's supposed to be kind of goofy, but it teaches a lot of fun biology concepts with animals.
There's also a pitcher plant.
Yeah, there's also a pitcher plant, which I believe was going against a koala. So I think I said like the koala just going to eat that and then move on. So I'll keep everyone posted on how that's going, but I anticipate winning because I've played enough to know kind of the pitfalls.
I feel like it's often very random.
It is. I just like saying that to exude some confidence.
Just the whims of Twitter, right? Like
kind of, yeah. Or arguments or how random things work. But.
Well, and there's some randomness, like the field of play or the fight is sort of randomly picked.
It
so
is,
if you have like a shrimp versus a zebra and they end up in the middle of the ocean, the zebra might lose.
Yeah. But they could also plop the giant squid and the elephant in a desert, and the giant squid's going to dry up real fast. So, yeah. All right, but that's going to wrap up another installment of That Science and Nature Show. Thank you so much for listening. I want to thank Webster, even though he's not here anymore. I hope he's doing well. I want to thank you, Becky, and I want to thank you, Bethany, for being our special guest this week and coming on the show to talk about conspiracy theories. We'll definitely have you back if you want to join us ever. We're always looking for a fourth chair. Mm-hmm. But remember, you can find past episodes of That Science and Nature Show on Amazon and Spotify. Until next week, you've been listening to That Science and Nature Show. My name is Jeremy Howard, and we are out.